Welcome to Home with Simone, and a huge thank you to everybody who continuously supports my channel, whether new or existing. Thank you guys very much. Today's video is a super quick DIY. This is my craft table, and if I'm doing my nails, this is most likely the table that I use. I recently redid my bathroom. I'll stick the link to that video in the description, so guys, check it out because it's a good one. And I had some leftover contact paper. So on this table, because it's relatively old, what I did was I just used the contact paper that I had previously, but it's worn and it does need to be revamped. So I decided that I was just going to take off the old contact paper and put on the new one. In theory, I should get a new table, and I will eventually, but I have one of those things, if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. So we shall use Old Faithful until I can't use it anymore. But what I wanted to show you guys is how easy the contact paper peels off. Like, there's no sticky transfer onto the table at all. It peels off really well, and it's been on here for well over a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I'm super happy with that. You guys will see me kind of picking some glue off from around the table. That glue was already there before I put this contact paper on, so it doesn't have anything to do with this. It was there previously because I did try sticking something else down. My only suggestion is, if you do use the contact paper and you want a smooth look, you have to make sure that the surface is smooth. So any imperfections you want to either file off or scrape off. And in that way, when you put your paper on top, you're going to have a seamless finish. This is as good as my table is going to get. Don't let the contact paper scare you guys. It was just folded and packed away. It's not going to affect its ability to be smoothened onto the surface that you're using it. What creates bubbling is, and a bumpy transfer, is if your surface is not smooth. I really don't care if it's perfect because no one's seeing it except for myself, and it's not being used for anything other than crafts. So, but if you're using this on your counter or cupboard or something, you want to make sure that the surface is smooth to eliminate bumping and folding and things like that. Then you want to smooth it down. People use lots of different techniques. I mean, people use debit cards or credit cards, things like that. Again, because I know my table is not smooth, I'm not going to use anything that's flat like a card because it will cause the contact paper to rip because there's bumps. Like you see right here, there's bumps underneath. So I just used my fist, the side of my fist, and that gives me a lot more control to stick down the parts that need to be stick down and can stick down, and smooth to the best of my ability around the parts that have that bumping. My biggest advice is don't rush this process. Take your time, make sure you smooth it out, make sure everything's stuck really nice and good and as neat as possible if you want to get a nice finish. I am using a scissors. Again, it's my craft table, so I'm really not being too picky about the finish of this. But if you're doing it on something like a cupboard or a countertop, then I recommend using an X-Acto knife when cutting the edges. Now, there's another way you can do it. Some people will fold the contact paper under the table or under the cupboard or cupboard doors. For me, I like to cut the edges off, but really to each their own. So you do what you feel is more aesthetically pleasing for you and the look you want to accomplish. Like I said, it's a craft table, so I'm not too picky. I just don't want to have any of the hangover getting in my way, because if you have hangover, it will gather dust and different things and whatever craft supplies that can stick on the bottom of it, and it will creep its way up right onto the bottom of the table, and then you'll experience your contact paper lifting. So whatever you're doing, just make sure that when you finish it, you have the ends completely sealed, and that way nothing can get up underneath the contact paper to cause it to lift and come off sooner than it should. So once I've cut off the excess, I like to just kind of go back over and make sure it's as, like I said, smooth as possible and that the ends are sealed. Any of the overlay that still remains, I just cut it off. And now I'm just using the scissors to kind of push everything down again, just trying to make sure that everything is sealed nicely and that it's not going to be unnecessary lifting because there is some bubbles. Tip, some people will poke a hole just over where the bubble is and smooth it out to get that air out, and that will also help keep the table smooth if there's imperfections on the bottom. So you can always do that. Make a tiny hole and then just smoothen it out, and in that way you don't have the bubble in that I have. But it's a craft table, so I really just could care less. I just needed something that could work for me in the moment. There's so many uses for contact paper. It can be used on countertops, cupboards, bookshelves, bookcases, coffee tables. I've also seen it used on canvases and framed to make beautiful one of a kind pictures. But I think the most creative way I've seen it used is to make coffee table books. However, in all books with contact paper to give it a new fresh feel is such a great way of reusing something you already have. If you guys have used contact paper, leave me a comment and let me know. What did you use it on?